figured out technology. A few people are joining us in. So we're talking about how to find meaningful work in crazy, uncertain times. And what better time to talk about that topic than these times? And so let me introduce myself. If anybody doesn't know who I am, I'm Emily Grabbatin, author of Dare to Decide. This is part of a series, a book launch, Finding Peace, Clarity, and Courage at Life's Crossroads. And one of the crossroads people often face is how to find meaningful work. Whether you've just graduated in these uncertain times and you're trying to figure out how do you find a job when there's so much uncertainty. How do you create, when you go through all those jobs, what do you want to be when you grow up? And after 12 jobs, you're still asking yourself that question. I hear that's pretty normal. So if that's you, don't feel bad. Or you just, I know I've talked to a few people who've been laid off, and now that they've had this quiet time to reflect, some of these dreams, some of these desires are just starting to pop up, and they're wondering, well, now what do I do? And so today we've brought on Kerry. Did I spell your name right, Kerry? Okay.
Yeah.
And she's just written a book that she mentioned earlier called Project Career Quest. And so I can't wait for, she's got 10 years. Yes, there you go. It's beautiful. Eagle on it. Yeah, so we just wanted to bring you on because you tell us about the experience you have, why we get to talk to you going into this call. I've had the same day job for about 17 years, along with my purpose coaching. And so I haven't had to go hit the pavement looking for a job. And so tell us, what experience are you bringing to the conversation today?
Okay, well, I mean, my primary, the purpose of my book was to help those that are in transition, maybe folks that have been laid off, maybe folks that chose to leave a job, or maybe folks that are sitting in a job, that day job you mentioned. You said you've been there 17 years. And ironically, I was in my corporate job for 17 years and I chose to leave. I had made that decision when I was at 15 years, but I spent the next 2 years preparing myself and left when I decided to go. So it was a choice that I made to leave. But but there are a lot of people who are in jobs at their day job, but it's not their dream job. They're there and it's like, it's familiar. It might be comfortable. It might not be so comfortable. But that's what I try to do is I help people, if they've been laid off, to try to determine their next best step, or if they're, again, considering making that move like I did. And, the neat thing is I've been through all of these things. I've been through it. I've been the college student that went to college and really they came to me the beginning of my junior year and said, you haven't declared a major yet. And it's because I still didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, other than what I shared before. Is at that time I wasn't ready to be a ballerina. I wasn't really in shape to do that. So, but I've been down that road and trying to figure it out, and went through many years of, and I went through a number of jobs. I did work for one company during the 17 years that I was in corporate America, but in that one company, and I haven't even actually counted them, but I must have had 7 or 8 different jobs. So, and some of them I liked better than others. It really wasn't until the last job that I had there, my last 3 years of those 17 years, that I was really getting closer to doing exactly what I wanted to do. It wasn't quite there yet, but I was in charge of education, training, and professional development for a supply chain management. I had over 600 employees in the group, and it was a 9-state region. And I really, really loved doing that. I love helping people find their passion, their purpose, their direction. I have, I don't know if you can see him back there, my little buddy I've been using on my calls. This is Mark Twain, if you can see him. Can you see Mark Twain?
No, I can't.
I never can. I'm not very intuitive about how to turn these things and get it in the picture there. But
okay, you can see him partly. Yeah.
Can you see him a little bit? But Mark Twain said that he said the 2 most important days of our life are the day that we're born and the day we discover why.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah, and that's been my passion is really, I know I wrote my book, and primary audience are job seekers, people that have been laid off, but I also have a lot of stuff in there to help people that are just on the journey of trying to discover their why, trying to discover their bigger purpose. And I think it aligns really well with your book, Dare to Decide. It sounds like, that's what you do. Mm-hmm. A purpose coach is helping people figure out that bigger purpose.
Yeah. And also, actually what I find more is a lot of, when I've talked to people, they are looking for their purpose, or some of them have it, they kind of know what they're called to. They just don't know how to get started. They don't know, how do I get from here to here? Because there's so many, I call them mini dares in between these steps, and you don't know the path to get there. And it's not always a straight path. And so a lot of times I'm figuring out, how do you fit that in an already busy life when you can't just up and quit everything and leave and go all into that one thing? So that's who I end up. So the book is helping people along that journey. And once they figure it out, they're like, okay, I'm all in. Now what? So yeah, I love how these messages complement each other. So tell me, what is the emotional journey you see? So in the uncertainty of either you've left a job and you're sitting there waiting and you don't have anything, or you don't know what your options are, or what is that emotional journey that people are going when they're navigating a career transition?
Yeah, Emily, that's a great question. And it's actually something that I address in my book, and in my book, Project Career Quest, and I call it the stages of adjusting to change, okay? Because it is a major change, whether you've been laid off or you decide to take that journey yourself. And it actually, the model that I have here is based on the model, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model, on the stages of grief. It comes from her book on death and dying. And when you think about it, the job search journey, if someone's been laid off, it is like a death. It's the death of that job. It's the death of that career. It might be a good thing that it's been, but on the other hand, there may be people that you were, really close friends with, and you may not get to see them again. And so it feels like dying. And the other thing is death or dying. The dying aspect of it are those people who are in a job right now that they're not satisfied in, they're not fulfilled, they're not engaged, and they're just dying there in that job. Every day it just feels like part of your life is just going away with no real satisfaction, no real purpose, no real outcome or impact. And so it feels like that. So I talk about that because there are predictable stages to adjusting to change. And, those are the denial stage, like denying that the job's not what you thought it was going to be, or denying that you got laid off. There are people, you've seen the news where somebody, for 2 months they were going to Starbucks, getting up, getting dressed, disappearing somewhere, and their family still thought they were employed, right? Or they meet someone and say, what do you do? And they don't want to tell them that they've lost their job, like there's something to be ashamed of, which there isn't. But so they go through denial, they go through resistance, and the resistance stage is anger. It's frustration. And at its worst, it's apathy. And I see that all the time with job seekers where it's apathetic and they're like, I give up. Then there's acknowledgement. If we get them through that stage, the resistance stage, then there's the acknowledgement stage. Okay, yep, I need to do something, right? So we get them to the acknowledgement stage, and then they move on to the next stage, which is acceptance, accepting that I need to start moving towards my future. And then there's the final stage, which is called the adaptation stage, where we fully embrace the journey and we start doing the right things. You're talking a minute ago about folks not knowing what to do, even though they're like, okay, I want to do something different. And that's why I use a very structured project management approach. And I call it Project Career Quest, because it's like this quest, this journey we're going on for our career, but having a structured approach and saying, this is my life, and my life is a project. The beginning of it was the day I was born, like Mark Twain said, right? Okay. But it's a project, and then I need to plan it. We spend time planning our vacations and planning what we're going to take to the tailgate to the football game or things like that. But how many of us really plan what we're going to do with our life, what we're going to do with so often we just kind of fall into something, and then we stay there until we get kicked out or booted out or fall out of it, and then we go and we fall into something else, but we don't plan it. Intentional. And that's what people need, I believe, is that intentional, disciplined approach that helps them really think through the things that will help them find that fulfillment and satisfaction in their career and in their life. And then they execute it like they do at the project. They execute it, and throughout the project, they monitor and control and say, hey, is this still where I want to go? Am I getting the results I want? If I'm not, what do I need to do? What kind of corrective action I need to do? You have a plan, you work the plan, and then, closeout really doesn't come until the day we die for our life. But closeout, if you're in transition in a job, closeout is when you've landed that position and then you move into that new job. You basically close out that project, and now your new project is your new job, right?
Adapting and adjusting. Yeah. And I love that, because just because you took a step, sometimes it's not what you thought it was going to be, or it doesn't, the environment or the work and expectations or what you actually enjoy doing versus the black and white words on paper. And then there's this sense of failure or grief already, because you're like, well, did I screw up? Did I not get this right? So I love that you're creating, there's this process along the way. So now, if you do a quick recap, if you're watching the replay, or if you're in the just in the comments, or if you're live now, which stage resonates with you? I'd love you to write that word. So could you do a quick recap, Kerry, of those 5 stages that you were talking about?
The 5 process groups I was talking about of a project.
Yeah.
Project initiation. And what I tell people is, if you've been laid off, somebody else initiated your project for you. Okay. But if you're in a job and you're thinking about changing, then you have to take action to initiate the project. And then there's project planning it. And that's where it helps to work with someone like Emily or myself. Find a career coach, someone who can help you work through that and help you plan that, because, neither Emily or I or anybody else that does coaching, we don't have the answers. The answers are in you, but we can help draw those things out because we're trained and we're skilled in doing that, right?
And the objectivity helps too, because we're so close to it. It's such an emotional ride. It's hard to keep yourself motivated every day and focused. Yeah.
That's
okay.
Right. Those are initiating. We've got planning. We've got executing, which is taking action. Okay. Once you have an idea, once you've explored some options and opportunities, then you have an idea where you want to go. Then you start executing and doing the things you need to do, which is what I did. Like I said, when I had 15 years in, I put a plan in place, and I went back to school and I started executing and I started making things happen. Right. And then you have the monitor and control. And that's what, Emily, you were just talking about when you said you read the description of the job on paper. It sounded great. And you got there and you decided it really wasn't what you had thought it would be, and maybe it's a disappointment. That's called monitor and control. That just says, okay, this isn't really where I want to be. I need to take corrective action, and maybe I have to go back to the planning stage, because you may have to loop back a little bit sometimes. But don't just stay there because it's there, because I'm still going to monitor and control and say, is this what I want with my life? And so that's monitor control, and then of course project closeout. And so again, if you're in transition, it's closing out that project for the new job. If it's your life project, of course, that doesn't come until the very end, but hopefully if we plan well and we execute well, then at the end of our life, and my father passed away a year ago, June 24th, he was just buried on July 6th, just celebrated his 1-year anniversary there. And, the good thing, my dad was 92. He said, Kerry, I've lived a good life. He said, I've loved twice my mother. And then after she passed away, he had a girlfriend for a couple of years that he really loved and respected, Ruth, a lot. And he said, and I've done a lot with my life. I don't have any regrets. I feel good about it. And that's the way everybody should feel when they, he was ready. He was ready and he felt good.
That's so good. And so what are biggest mistakes you see in career transition? That the common things that you just see, actually they think they're doing something, maybe that's the advice everybody gives them, but it's not actually the best way to help them move forward.
Sure. Well, I hate to say this, but a lot of people are lazy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and they're lazy and they don't want to invest in themselves. Okay. And when I say when they're lazy, it's like, for example, my book is a full coaching package. I mean, I basically coach them through the whole process. And, you know, a lot of times people go, oh, they don't want to read the book. You know, they don't want to take the time to do that. They don't want to take the time to explore. The biggest mistake people make when they're in transition is to not explore inside themselves and say, you know what? I talked about this on my video today that I did, my Facebook Live. I talked about the benefits of losing your job. And one of the benefits that you have is the ability at this point to really dig deep and to try to understand who you are, what it is that you want to do next, and not just jump into the next job. Don't let it be fear over faith. You know, go with faith and say, okay, I'm going to spend time. I'm going to have to do some work here. It's not an easy process. You know, you got to put in the work to get the results that you want. So don't get lazy in the process. And I see it all the time where people are like, and then they jump into the first job that comes along that pays the bills for them, and they're back into another unfulfilling day job because they rushed in it. Or they say something like, well, your book is $25. I don't have a job. $25 is a lot of money, right? And I'm like, well, $25, if you land a job in 2 months versus 12 months, isn't that a pretty good investment because you had someone guiding you on the process? Or if you want money to, you know, not only maybe buy Emily's book or my book or do, you know, find something like that. There are things out there, resources that you can read, but also to hire a coach. And there are people that can do that. And the money that you spend on that, and again, I'm not trying to sell something, but what I'm trying to get people to do is to open up their mind to understand that there are people like Emily and myself who understand this process, and we can help you get there faster. And the sooner you get there, you start making income again. And it's the minor investment in yourself versus trying to figure it out on yourself, or just becoming apathetic and getting stuck in that second phase, that resistant phase, and just throwing up your hands and saying, I can't do this. Engage to help you. And you know what? There are free resources out there. That's why there's job seeker and career transition groups out there that can help you as well. But go out and seek assistance, whatever fits, you know, your capability of being able to do that. But please don't get lazy in the process. That's the biggest mistake people get. There's no quick way to do this. If you want something that's going to be fulfilling, and that gets you closer to your calling, or you're discovering your why or whatever, you're going to have to get other people, because coaches help draw things out of people. It's in there somewhere. It's just, you know, you need some help, right?
It's hard to recognize what is the right fit if you haven't done that work to match it, like the puzzle pieces. You have to know, well, what am I missing? What do I want? And then what is the piece that fits to that, as opposed to waiting for the magic pill or this passive approach to wait it come for us, or maybe, you know, wait for God to show me what it is. Well, how do you recognize with certainty, yes, I should take that, or yes, that's a good thing, or oh, that was good, but I didn't think about this part. Yeah, and it helps prevent you a mistake later on. Yeah, you lose more. There's more to cost than you know, the money in your spending bank right now. It's the cost in your emotions and your mental health and your family's sense of security. And, you know, the sooner you have that taken care of, the sooner you're just going for the gusto and investing in yourself and your future and in your family, then there's the investment goes much beyond, you know, this week's money that you have available. Yes, for sure. And that is a hard mentality to get to if you're used to just going from paycheck to paycheck or not having to think about that. It is a different way of thinking.
And I think that's why a lot of people do go paycheck to paycheck, because they have that self-limiting belief. They have that mindset and instead of expanding themselves and saying, how can I really develop myself? And I probably need to engage someone else to do that. And you mentioned a puzzle, and the other day I actually used a prop in my thing, and this is a puzzle, a puzzle that someone upside down anyway. That someone time, and I said, the job search process is really like a puzzle. There's all these pieces to it, right? And you're trying to do it by yourself. You're having to go out and figure out where the pieces are. And guess what? You're usually, instead of having a picture of the puzzle, you have like this blank sheet, and you don't even know what the picture should look like, right? Because you don't understand the job search process. But if you've got someone working with you and they'll say, here's all the pieces of the puzzle. Now, yes, you have to do the work. You have to put it together, but you don't have to go out and scrounge around like a scavenger hunt to try to find the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Well, this is beautiful. So where I put in the comments where they can find out more. So if you are looking for a job, just so you know, this is Job Hunt July for Kerry, and she's giving all kinds of tips, practical tips, breaking it down each day, going live. What is it, between 1 and 1 o'clock around then? Yeah.
It's every day. Every day, July 1st to the 31st, from 1 to 1:30, and that's Eastern time. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, on the eastern part, the same thing as New York time. And so it's on Facebook. I'm doing Facebook Live. And if they want to join me, they can join. It's an open group. It's called Project Career Quest Book Launch Team. Just send a request and I'll accept you into that. And then the videos are every day. And if you can't be on during that time, they're actually in the group. And so they're, just scroll down and you can see them all. But I think it's a great tool for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah. So that's the group. You can search for that on Facebook or visit the link below. I'll post those a couple times so that you can find them easily. And so let us know what resonates with you so far, right? As you're watching this, just type in quest. I love the word quest that you use there, even in my Dare to Decide book. I talk about finding your direction, your crossroads. A lot of times I had to think, I had this perfection, and it was like I had to arrive, I had to figure it out, and then, it was done. And I had to shift to this adventure mindset. So I talked about that a couple times, where think about it embarking on an adventure. You never know what you're going to find and discover along the way. And I love the quest part of that and how that.
I'll tell you that actually quest, what it stands for is the Q stands for questioning, the questioning that the job seeker has, especially when they lose their job, like how am I going to find another job and who's hiring? And of course the questioning when they get interviewed, what's your strengths, what's your core competencies. The U is for the understanding, as I said before. The E is for exploring options and opportunities. The S is for that structured project management approach that I mentioned. And then the T is for, actually has a dual meaning. It could either be transitioning into that next job, or it could be a total transformation as you go through this process.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, hopefully those are enough to get you started if you're watching on this quest. But I want to ask you a personal question, Kerry. Since the theme of this is Dare to Decide, what kind of dare have you had to face lately in your life? So, and let me explain dare. When I say dare, the book is called Dare to Decide. But like I said, there's like a million little dares to get to that point of actually deciding or committing. And then there's the dares to like follow through on your commitment. And so, over like limiting belief, sticking through something. Yeah. So tell me about your dare. What have you had to face?
Well, I looked at a little bit that you had on that and dare, and one of the things that resonated with me was you had something about dare to take or dare to take control or something like that, or dare to let go of control.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So I think the dare for me is not the dare to let go of control, but I think it's the dare to take control. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And here's the thing. Even though after I left my corporate career, what I did is I went out and I worked for myself. I'm an entrepreneur, but mostly what I've done over the last 2 decades, really over 20 years now, is I have contracted with other companies. I've been working with one company for 23 years now, and I've been doing project management training all over the world, right? So what I did, and I also do career coaching, and I do it with private clients, but I also contract with a company where we work with corporate clients. But I think sometimes we have to dare to actually take total control, because, you know, what I found is over the years, and just let me use the project management example of 23 years with this company, contracting with them. Over the years, they had been purchased, well, 2 other times, okay? And one of them just occurred. A company called Kerry, which is a huge international company, purchased them. And a whole lot of the full-time employees just got laid off at the end of June, okay? And I also know that this will affect my ability to work with them and do training with them, because they're going to have someone new come in that's not been designing my work all these years. But here's the thing, I've never totally been in control of my destiny, because I sort of put it in the hands of, and this isn't a bad way to do it. It's part of the journey, right? So when I first go out and I'm trying to find training gigs, it's good if you can contract with someone else. But sometimes we have to just go, you know what? I don't need that. I can do it myself. I can take total control, because we're still kind of at the mercy of someone else when they, you know, get bought out by another company, or they decide, you know, well, we don't need you as an instructor anymore. In fact, this has happened over the years too, where, you know, your rate gets higher and then they go, well, we'll just bring new people in at half the rate, right? And that's going to continue to happen for people until they take control and say, you know, I'm not going to leave my destiny in the hands of someone else.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be in control of it. And I think that's part of what you're doing, Emily. I think you said you've got a full-time job. You've been working 17 years there, but you're also doing something that you have total control over. And whether you succeed or fail in that, it's all up to you, Emily. It's not up to some company. It's not up to, you know, whether or not you're going to get money from the government, you know. And we got to quit looking at corporate America and the government to take care of us, you know. And one of the things I wrote about in my book is that I think it's important that we all start having an entrepreneurial mindset. Whether you become an entrepreneur or not, I think it's important, you know, that we may want to have some side gig or something, so that we're not left stranded and we're not always dependent on someone else. So I think sometimes it's the dare to take control.
Yes, and that's a whole other pathway to explore too. And if you need help with that, if that's been something that's percolating in your heart, there's lots of resources for that path as well. And that can be a different path than even just looking for a job in corporate world or ministry or wherever you're feeling called. So know that there's so many resources out there. You don't have to stay stuck. And so I love that dare to realize, to own your own path. And just because someone else's decision affects you doesn't mean that you have to stay there. And so I love that. Well, thanks so much, Kerry. I love that you shared with us today. I hope that it's been encouragement for those who are looking for hope for their career pathway or their shift, or looking for ideas, or recognizing where you are in the process. Grieve what you need to grieve, feel what you need to feel, and then figure out what is your next step. And so in the comments, I'd love to know, as we close out today, what do you feel your next step is? Put that in the comments and let us know how that's going for you. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, Kerry. I've put the links in below, and hopefully they come find you for some more tips.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.